Howdy! My name is Dolly. Sometimes there are movies that come out that are a little unexpected and weird. You might even say they're goofy. And whether it was because you watched these movies when you were younger, or you just really like movies with freaky looking characters, they hold a special place in your heart, deep down, in the darkest parts. I used to watch whatever DVDs I happened to have when I was younger. Alright, we got Extremely Goofy Movie, Romeo and Juliet, Hotel Transylvania, and Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel. Time to watch these on repeat until they're burned into my memory. So, I have a special nostalgia for movies that are a little cursed, but I love them so much. So, I've decided to give some love to these so-called cursed characters, and draw them. I also wanted to make this a fun little exercise for myself, because I don't really draw a lot of male characters. I guess I draw women a tad bit more often. So today we're gonna be drawing lots of dudes. The men. The fellas. A character's qualifications for being cursed, at least for our purposes, either has to have a design that could be considered uncanny or just generally weird, be a character that a lot of people don't like, the reason usually being that they're cringy or something like that, or they're from a movie that nobody talks about unless they're being ironic about it. Like Shark Tale or something. So while I had ideas for some very cursed fellas I could do, I've selected what I thought would be the funniest characters, or the ones I thought you guys would be most interested to see. So let's start out with our first cursed character. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's Bradley Uppercrust III! Did I make this whole video just to draw Bradley Uppercrust? No. What? Bradley Uppercrust III is from the Extremely Goofy Movie, and I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie because it's been burned into my head, but also because for the longest time I didn't realize the Extremely Goofy Movie was a sequel. I thought it was its own original movie, and every time someone said the Goofy Movie, I thought they meant this one. I thought when people were talking about Roxanne, they meant this girl from the Christmas short, and like, this girl. I watched the first Goofy Movie for the first time, and oh yeah, I get it now. This is better. But it doesn't have Bradley in the weird Goofy daydream sequence, so I wish they'd use Bradley again in something. I feel like he'd be really fun in like the House of Mouse. What is it about self-absorbed characters that make me love them so? So Bradley's design is very interesting to draw, because he is probably the most expressive character in the movie. Love the way they animated him. He's so over the top in every scene he's in. But certain parts of his animation are super fluid. Of course, I can't mention his character design without mentioning his chin. This was so weird to draw, because it kinda changes length scene to scene. But I'm glad they gave it to him, because it gives him such a unique character design and unique expressions, of course. I would add a section about any merchandise or other things he appears in, but from what I can find, his only piece of official merchandise is this McDonald's toy, and well, I mean, it's something. So, for my drawing of Bradley, I really wanted to lean into the Frutiger Arrow and Wii system look for him, mostly just because I associate Bradley and those aesthetics with the early 2000s, and I think Bradley would just look really cool with that aesthetic. I also wanted to include some older 2000s technology, so Bradley has a little flip phone, or, oh, I'm sorry, a mouse-caphone, and he's texting Max about the X Games. Max has no idea how he even got his phone number. I was thinking about also drawing Max, but I didn't want to do two Goofy movies on one video, and because I didn't know if y'all were big fans of Bradley and Max. Maybe in a part 2 I could draw Max on the other end of the messages. I really leaned into the old Wii and 3DS system look for Bradley's background, and I think it fits him surprisingly well. And here's the leader of the Gammas himself! I'm very happy with how he turned out. I'm so glad his chin looks good. I was so nervous about that. I bet you guys weren't expecting Demon Slayer in this video. So, Demon Slayer is a very popular anime about demons that roam the earth and eat people. So, a group of people called the Demon Slayers, well, slay the demons. There are these upper-ranked demons, which are the strongest out of all the demons, and one of them is Enmu. Enmu is my favorite Demon Slayer character. His whole thing is that he can make people fall asleep and can control their dreams. He can also turn into a train. He's a jack of all trades, really. Enmu is one of the least liked Demon Slayer characters, so that's why he's on the list. I totally get if people don't like Enmu, but to me, he's just a funny guy who likes trains. As far as backstory in the show, we literally only know that he really likes trains. But in the books, it said that he used to be a doctor when he was a human. But he wasn't a very good one. Oh no. I really like Enmu's character design. I love whatever he has going on with his hair and his little tailcoat things. He's got such a fun design. I wanted to draw Enmu doing something silly, so he's playing Club Penguin on his computer. What a gamer. He's playing at the train station and has probably just been looping on the train for hours. He never leaves the train station. He probably doesn't even know what the rest of the game is. He probably only plays games that have trains in them, and then he'll just stay in the train area the whole time. He never wins at Fortnite, because he just stays on the train, even when it's in the storm. I also felt that an early 2000s aesthetic would fit him very well. But I wanted to go for a bit more of a beach-like Frutiger arrow, if that makes sense. Lots of hibiscus and dolphins, but still like simplistic blues and whites. Also tried a different shading style for the black parts of his hair, as you can't really shade pure black. So I tried using highlights to make his head really shiny. His hair looks squeaky clean. I've tried to stay pretty on model for these drawings, so Enmu was harder than Bradley because I don't draw in an anime style very often. Demon Slayer has really good line weight throughout the show, so I tried to replicate that in my Enmu drawing. It's hard to see right now, but when I show the close-up, you might notice he has a little Thomas the Tank Engine sticker on his computer. I personally believe that his special attack in the Demon Slayer fighting game should have been him rushing you on a train while the Thomas the Tank Engine theme plays in the back, instead of whatever this is. What even is that? He never does that in the show. I figure I should mention it, but Enmu has this really cool mouth-hand thing going on. And that's what he uses to make people fall asleep, and it can pop off Addams Family style, and he can use it to talk to people. It's a big part of his character design, but unfortunately you can't see it in my drawing. Enmu's background was a little harder to do than Bradley's because it's easier for him to blend into a background than Bradley, and I wanted to make sure that he was still the main focal point. So I ended up giving him a white background with a lot of blue accents. I did try to blend in the beach theme with little yellow hibiscus and some dolphins. Whenever someone mentions dolphins in the sense of an old 2000s aesthetic, I always think of this one game I had where you had a bunch of dolphins in a bowl that you could play with. The game didn't really have much going on in it, but you know, I still remember it after all these years. This is what the inside of my brain looks like. Enmu is definitely the type of Club Penguin player who buys a bunch of puffles, totally forgets about them, and then has a new postcard every time he logs in about one of his puffles running away. But I mean, it's not his fault. He's gotta ride the train. I add some little touch-ups here and there on the background, and add some little details that make it look more like a game UI. I really like the faint Enmu in the background. It kind of reminds me of those old 80s photo shoots. He seems like the type to do ridiculous stuff during photo shoots. And here is our funky little dude. I love how happy he looks here. He's so happy to just ride a virtual train. Mr. Peabody! Anyone remember this movie? I don't think anyone was really expecting this one. Mr. Peabody and Sherman is a 2014 DreamWorks movie based off of a 1959 show, Peabody's Improbable History, that was used as a segment in the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. There was also this Netflix show after the movie, but we don't have to talk about that. Mr. Peabody is the world's smartest dog. He's an inventor, a master of many different instruments, and a father. The main invention in the movie is a time machine called the Wayback. He takes his adoptive son, Sherman, to different moments in history to teach him important lessons, and also nearly die. I used to love this movie when I was younger, and honestly, I think it's still pretty good. It's one of the more underrated DreamWorks movies, which I think is too bad because there are some pretty good scenes in this movie. Like the beautiful boy scene. This scene is so sad, especially when he finds Sherman in the box. Oh my gosh. Even if you don't want to watch the movie, please just look up the beautiful boy scene. I love it so much. I was actually going to draw this scene for my Mr. Peabody art, and I had gotten pretty far with it too. But I felt that it didn't really align with the other pieces of art I've done for this video, and I just didn't really like how it was turning out. So instead, I decided to go with a more 60s look, and that's when the original show aired, and Mr. Peabody matches the aesthetic really well. I did add some early 2000s technology floating around him, so he still had a little bit of the Y2K look the others had. For the composition, I liked the idea of it looking like a magazine cover or a Subway advertisement. No, not that Subway, like a metro station ad. Is that really specific? Maybe, but that's all I could think about while drawing. Mr. Peabody was another character who was a little strange to draw, because in most pictures he's turned to the side so you can see his face, but from the front, I didn't want to draw that. There was also not many drawings of his movie design to look at, so I had to figure out how to translate him to 2D. Which was a weird process because he can look wildly different depending on where his face is turned. His expressions are also interesting because he can't exactly frown with the way his face is structured, so most of his expressions are shown through his eyebrows. This one definitely took me the longest to do, mostly because it was hard to find a composition that looked good for him, and because I had a bunch of different really fun ideas. One where he was in what looked like a dress-up game, but all the clothes were historical outfits. And one that looked like a select screen for a bunch of different instruments, because apparently Mr. Peabody can just play any instrument. But I figured a more 60s inspired look for him was probably the better way to go in the end. I used blue for a lot of the background and all of the text in this drawing because it contrasts really well with Mr. Peabody's overtly white and red color scheme. And it gave it a pretty cool retro futuristic look. It's kind of a weird blend of kitschy and Y2K, but I actually think that works really well for Mr. Peabody considering his whole time traveling thing. Maybe he took a Tamagotchi and a camcorder to the 60s for this. I also really wanted the old technology to really contrast with the futuristic design of the Wayback in his hand, so that's another reason why I kept everything else blue. And then I just add some extra touches to really give it that old look. I do have an old video about how I do this in detail, but one of the things you can do to achieve this look is duplicate the line art layer, turn it red, set it to multiply, and then move it ever so slightly from the main line art. This gives it a misprinted look a lot of old magazines have. And here is Mr. Peabody! He looks so good, I'm really happy with this one. I think the red border looks really nice. So, those are going to be all the fellas in this video. This one was really fun. I really like the aesthetics I gave to each character, and I'd love to draw more fan art of lesser drawn characters. If you guys have someone you'd like to see me draw, please let me know. It doesn't have to be a guy either. I mean, I have a specific character in mind I'd like to do. Who was your favorite? I like them all a lot, but I really like the way that Bradley turned out. And if anyone's curious, I am gonna have all of these guys as prints on my imprint store if you're really itching for a Y2K Bradley or Enmu. Or Mr. Peabody, for all 2 of you big Peabody fans out there. Are there any Mr. Peabody fans watching? Please, I need to know. And if anyone is curious about my upcoming videos, I got a lot of different ones planned, but here's a sneak peek of one of them. Ooh. What could it be? If you watch my shorts, you probably know. If you're new around here, thank you so much for sticking around, and if you're curious about some of my other videos, I've got one about Monster High and an Indigo Park video. Thank you all so much for watching, and goodbye!